backwoods. Born in the backwoods. Raised by a bear. Raised by a bear. Got cast iron nuts. Got cast iron nuts. And 2 coats of hair. And 2 coats of hair. Got a stainless steel dick. Got a stainless steel dick. Yeah, it's a mean, mean prick. Yeah, it's mean, mean prick. I'm a mean motherfucker. I'm a mean motherfucker. Who don't take no shit. I don't take no shit.
The biggest pain in the butt for me with the sauna is trying to get things like actually going. You have to like light it an hour before you go in there. You got like, it's a whole thing. So whenever we do the sauna, it's always at night or on the weekend or something, because it just takes forever. But it's a nice Kuma stove, and it's amazing. It gets ridiculously hot in there, super humid. We got rocks with water and all that, and I got everything cedar on the inside, and what was it? We got a little temperature gauge in there. Says, I think the hottest I've gotten it to is like 140, which was pretty toasty for a sauna. And it's a good size sauna. It's like, I'd say from here across this way is the size of the sauna. And it's a good size.
You can fit quite a few people in there. Yeah.
Exactly. I haven't built the other side with benches yet because it's just me and my kids.
Yeah.
So, and that's all I really care about. And usually within like 10, 15 minutes, they're lying on the floor because it's cool down there.
The wife don't sauna?
She's not a big fan. She loves hot yoga, but isn't a big fan of saunas.
So I met a guy in my apartment complex, actually in the hot tub. So he was in the hot tub, and me and Lori got in the hot tub with him. Excuse me, and we started talking. And come to find out, he's had a pretty interesting life. He's probably, I don't know, mid to late 50s maybe early 60s. And he's from Golden, Colorado, but he lived in the Oklahoma City area for like 20, 30 years. And he owned car washes and all different kinds of stuff.
Oh, nice.
But he also owned yoga studios. So he was a trained, experienced yoga instructor.
A yogi?
Yeah,
is that
yogi,
what they're called?
Yeah. And he still has one. He still owns one that somebody runs for him in Oklahoma City. But anyway, he told me that he's been sauning for decades. And he said that there's studies out, and by the Swedes who actually invented sauna, right? That people who sauna on a regular basis, not every day, but on a regular basis for at least 20 minutes, die slower. Meaning they're healthier, right? Because you're not only when you sweat, that's the way the body's way to cool itself down, but it's also detox.
Gets all the nasty crap out of you.
A lot of the stuff out of you. So, and I was like, well, that's pretty interesting.
Oh yeah,
coming from a yogi, I mean,
well,
it's almost like when it's on the internet, it's true.
They do it, yeah, right. They do it religiously. Like it's crazy the amount of benefits that come with it. Because I know I heard somebody talking about how it's not that it just helps you sweat all the toxins out, but on top of that, the like fatty organs that you might have, it kind of helps with making those a little bit healthier. I don't know if it takes away the crappy fat that's on the organs, but
well,
sounds like it works.
They talk about the plunging too, right, and what that does, and there's a lot of people that talk about doing back and forth. So like cold plunge and then sauna, and then cold plunge and then sauna. So that's what we're going to do when they open up the pool. We're going to...
Hell yeah.
I don't think it's going to be... I mean, it might be 50, 55 degrees maybe, but hopefully at least...
Do they open it before it gets like crazy hot?
They open it in May.
Right.
So in Colorado, I mean...
Free cold plunge.
But it's only like... it's only like 30 steps from the pool to the sauna.
That's what I would do when I went to the gym.
Yeah. So we're gonna try that and see how that works out because, Lori has her own place. She bought one of those tub plungers too. So she has down in her bathroom in the basement. She set hers up down there.
Oh, nice.
So we're just now. So we've had them up for about 2 weeks now, and we're just now figuring out how to regulate the temperature
where you want it to where you're not.
So that when you get up in the morning, right? So like, I want to get up at 5, right? And I, brush the teeth, and then by 5:30, I want to be in the plunge, and I want it to be around 52 degrees. That's kind of where I'm comfortable. So there's things you have to do like the night before, and then when you first get up, like putting blocks of how many blocks of ice do you put in there? And
you put ice in it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So what we did, and I actually got this from Brecca. So I have these Tupperwares, and it's about, I don't know, they're probably 3 inches high, and they're probably 5 by 5. So I fill those up. I have 5 of them, and I fill those up and put them in the freezer overnight. And then I have 2 bigger Tupperwares. They're probably 12 inches high, and they're probably, I don't know, 6 by 6 or 8 by 8. So before I go to bed at night, I'll put those 2 big ones in there.
Oh, nice.
Right, and then and then I have a cover that goes over the top of it, so the air's not warming it too fast. And then when I get up in the morning, I take those 5 smaller ones. They're not small, and I put those in there, and then 30 minutes later, man, I'm figuring it's taking about 2 weeks to figure that out.
I mean, if it works, it works.
Yeah, I mean that's the only way you can regulate it.
Do you have a temperature gauge that you put in it that goes to the bottom?
I have a floating one that floats on top. And then I just use like a meat thermometer that has the, but you can stick it in about 4 inches,
right?
Because the cooler water is below the surface,
right?
So what we figured out was, if I open up and it says 55 on the floating one, first you want to mix it around a little bit because it's floating on top, so it's
right.
And then find out what the true temperature is, and then I stick the meat thermometer in there, and it's usually 1 to 2 degrees cooler because it can go a little bit deeper,
right?
So I usually go in between. I'm like, so if it says 55 and 53, I say 54. So that's kind of how I regulate it. I mean, it's not a lot of work; it's a little, but
what'll make it a little bit easier, so you don't have to use the meat thermometer. It's like $2 or $3 or like $5 on Amazon, but I got one that's an electric one that has a little suction cup. It's a long wire, and it's got a suction cup at the end at the part that actually takes the temperature, and I suction it at the bottom. And then I have the other one that kind of floats on the top as well, and you can read both of them. That way, like, bing, bang, boom.
I'll have to get that link from you before we leave.
Like, it's super cheap. I got most of the stuff from like a aquarium part of Amazon, but no, I love it. We used a horse trough, and then I took fence posting and built around it like a nice box, and then took what's it called, insulation foam, and we like the hard big pieces that you can get that are like the size of drywall, and we cut it out and put a big plastic bag over and stapled it to the top with handles so that you just go outside of it, and it keeps it, I mean, obviously it keeps it cold, it keeps freezing, so like I have to
I just was trying to figure out a way to regulate the temperature without having to buy bags of ice all the time,
right?
From the store, and or depleting my freezer ice, because there's really not enough in there to do it. I mean, I can get
and it's just a little cubes.
I can get a big size plastic bowl out of there, but you throw it in, it's floating on top. 5 minutes later, it's really only cooling the surface. But I've seen guys. There's a guy that has a place up in the mountains, and he has it's like a cabin. He has a big deck on it, and he has like you said, a horse trough. It's not really a trough though. It's like a feeder. It's like a big. It's black, and it's probably 4 feet long, and probably
like a tub,
2 or 3 feet deep.
That's exactly what I have out there.
And they just throw water in there, and then they'll throw like 2 or 3 bags of ice in there.
That's smart.
Like 30 minutes before they get in, so they're actually like you see the athletes in the locker rooms, right? When they get in, it's the ice is like there's ice floating. Of course, they have trainers that set that all up for them, but they're basically sitting in ice with some water.
That one. So the first time I ever tried doing like cold plunges, the first time I heard it on like podcasts or anything, I did exactly that. I'm like, I'll just fill the tub full of ice and like a tiny bit of water. Didn't even make it like 15 seconds. I was like, how do people do this? And it's like, okay, you need to be like smart about it.
There's a little bit more water than ice.
Yeah.
But I mean, you've got the whole surface of it is just ice, right? I mean, it's mostly water, but the whole surface is just ice. And so they're not breaking through, but they're moving through a layer of ice on the surface to get into that water. And then they sit there, and then the ice just forms around them, Very interesting, but I mean, athletes have been doing it for forever.
What's your morning? I mean, because it sounds like you're trying to get like crazy healthy, and I take vitamins. I do the sauna and stuff like that, but it's kind of like here and there. You were telling me something about a hydrogen water filter.
Yeah, I call it high water, so it's HI.
Right.
It's hydrogen infused
Mm.
water. Of course, Brecca's big on that, and he got Dana White and Rogan and all those guys.
I mean, he got him healthy.
Well, I mean, I listened to Brecca had Mark Wahlberg on his, and he was only on for he was over in France, like shooting a movie, and he had his whole family with him, and he got 15 minutes. He had 15 minutes he could jump on with Brecca. Brecca has a VIP group, and so, and they said a lot of things. He was I mean, there were some things like discipline over motivation. So when they were talking about the plunging, it's like and Brecca's like, I've been doing this for years, and sometimes I just don't feel motivated to get into that 50-degree water. And he goes, yeah, same here. And he goes, it really, really never gets easier.
Yeah.
But he goes, discipline over motivation. And at the end of the talk, all that stuff, his message that I pulled out of there was, because Mark Wahlberg's very well known for being, health conscious.
Right. He's been jacked since he was in that. Is it Good Vibrations?
Since the 90s, yeah. Like that came out in like 91, I think, 90 or 91. But he said, you know what, longevity. He said that's really what it's all. I mean, if you're doing all the right things and you're doing everything you can to stay as healthy as you can, exercising and doing what you do, whether it's plunging or saunaing and clean eating, getting the right sleep. He goes, it's really at the end of the day, it's all about longevity. It's about extending my life as long as I possibly can, so that I'm here with my wife and my kids and my grandkids and all the above. And
you don't want to be the old guy that's like hunched over
and can't do anything because you're
at 60
or and I'll use this word lightly, but be a burden on people.
Yeah.
Like,
what are we going to do with Grandpa?
For example, like if your wife or your kids like to go, I don't know, skiing, just throw that out there, and you can't do it because you have this ailment that could have been prevented, or this situation that could have been prevented,
just by eating well.
So now they're going up into the mountains and doing their thing, and you're either going up there and sitting in the lodge, right? Or you're at home waiting for them to come back and tell you how it went, right? And that's just not cool. So yeah, the message I took from that 15 minutes with Wahlberg was longevity.
No, I think that's smart. I think a lot of, especially veterans, need to think about long term. Like you're already hurting now. Most vets have back issues or whatever it is from carrying like 90-pound rucksacks, and you got some 21-year-old E5 that's like, yeah, no, just throw more stuff on your pack, and we're gonna go do 20. Yeah,
suck
yeah.
it up.
Don't be a pussy.
Embrace the suck.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? But you're right. I mean, veterans, that specific population, in my experience, they it's hard for them to tell you or tell anyone that they're hurting for several different reasons, not just for one any specific, but they don't want you to know that they have a weakness. They don't want to talk about themselves having a weakness. And when you're young, when I say young, I mean 20s, 30s.
Right.
Because once you hit about 40, early 40s, things start changing naturally, but also in veterans because, I mean, heck, if you went in at 17, 18, 19, 20, and you've put some serious wear and tear on your body by the time you're 40, right? If you, and that doesn't mean you stayed in for 20 years,
right?
But if you maybe you just did 3 or 6 or 10.
If you joined at 17, you could have retired at 37, 38. Like
that's what my dad did.
Yeah, it's not hard to be broken physically.
My dad did 20 years in the Army. He did 2 tours in Vietnam. He went in at 17, and it was literally one of those deals where go to the Army or go to jail.
Oh no.
I mean, you hear the stories of back in the day
right.
when you would go into a courtroom and the Army recruiters would stand in the back of the room. My dad, and this came straight from my dad's mouth. He goes, the judge said, you can go with this guy back here, or you can go with this guy, and he pointed at the bailiff. He goes, I mean, my dad wasn't a criminal, but he was just he was a nuisance. He just a teenage nuisance in town. It was a small town. And the judge was like, I'm tired of seeing you. You're not getting it. And so he goes, you go with this guy, with this guy. And my dad said, I went with the recruiter.
Yeah.
And
you'll get paid with this guy.
So 17 years old, and he retired at 20 years.
Wow.
So he's 37 years old. He's married with 4 kids. I was 16.
Man.
And I had 3 younger brothers and sisters. And now he's 37 years old. And looking back now, 37 is so young.
Yeah.
But 2 tours in Vietnam, 20 years of, and he was a combat engineer.
Oh man.
So he was in combat arms the whole time, and my dad was very stubborn, and he went to the VA when he retired, and they, I don't know if they gave him a hard time, but he felt like they gave him a hard time when he started at, and he said, "F you," and walked away. 20 years later, he's having all these issues, and a lot of his buddies were saying, "Dude, that's turnover from your military time." And
could be a litany of things.
Yes, and so they finally I was at that time I was in the Army.
Right.
I was an NCO at that time, and we all came together and said, "You need to go to the VA and get, And long story short, he walked away with 100%.
Nice.
Oh yeah, and
I mean, not nice that he had to.
yeah,
he's all jacked up, and
but
nice
the
they
bad
took care
part
of him.
was it was 20 plus years later.
Did he get any back pay?
No.
Oh no! I mean, I would imagine after
you know
that
what
long.
they do? They take you back to when you
applied for
apply
it,
the claim.
yeah.
Submit the claim. So, but it's just and then I'm the same way.
Right.
I retired after 20 years, and
Oh, you did the full 20.
I did the full 20. And
Hell yeah.
I was that guy. To our point earlier in the conversation, I was like, I never got shot. I never fell off the back of a 5-ton. I never, I have all my limbs in my eyes, and I can hear, even though it's, the ringing,
Right.
which I can hear right now.
Yeah, right.
But I'm fine. There's other people that need to go get this money, and of course we know later on that's not really how it works. But
could you explain to the people how that works? Because I can't count how many times I have literally quoted things that we've talked about, and I call you out like, "Hey, my buddy, I stealing this from him. I love it."
Yeah.
But my favorite thing to do, as far as explaining to other veterans why it's a good thing to go find out what benefits are available, is you're helping allocate more money to your local VA. So
it's complicated, right? Anything dealing with the VA. Because it is a bureaucracy, and everybody knows that. But the easiest way and this is the way it was explained to me, and this is the easiest way I think for people to understand, is, at least it was for me. Every single veteran has an account. Let's just say it's an account.
right.
That's dedicated to them, a pool of money to take care of you. If you don't go claim that money, it's just eventually going to go somewhere else. I was under the impression, as many of the veterans that I've talked to in the past, was if I really don't have all these issues, right, and I go and I get a service connected for 10% here, 20% there, or whatever, I'm taking money away from another veteran who's in a wheelchair, or
Right. Got blown up or something.
Yeah, I mean, has traumatic brain injury or TBIs or something like that. And I was under the impression that I was taking from them, and I found out that's not the case. Again, this is just a way to explain it. Every veteran has an account.
As a metaphor.
As a metaphor, set aside for them. So there is money for every single veteran. And it's not what you deserve, it's what you earned.
Yeah.
So if you don't go get it, you're losing out, I guess, is
Yeah,
the way
no,
you can put
the
it.
way you explained it to me the first time we spoke about it, I've said it on here a couple times, is like allocation of money going to your specific VA. Think of it like the end of the fiscal year, you got your units going to the range, you got to shoot your ammo, and if you don't shoot all of your ammo, and they go in and they count and they, send the government the numbers, and the government says, well, you didn't shoot all your ammo, so we're going to send you the amount that you shot. We're not going to send you more. That's why some units will go to the range, and if they can't shoot everything or use it all, they will burn it in a burn pit.
Yep.
Doubt you're allowed to do that, but it happens. Veterans have seen it happen. But think of that like the VA. Every time you go to your local VA, you're telling the government, when that VA sends their information back to the state and the state sends it to DC, you're telling them, we need more money because we have more veterans that need help. So then they'll allocate that money to that local VA. So when you go in just to find your benefits, I'm not saying you got to go in and try and get 100% or anything like that, but just going in and letting the VA know, hey, I'm here, I want to see what's available to me, that's telling them, sweet, we're going to be able to get a little bit more money so that even if you don't use it, Jim Bob that got his legs blown off, that needs a wheelchair ramp, and, the VA didn't have enough money before and now they do, you're helping other veterans by going to that VA, because you're going to help them receive more money, which gets them better care for the veterans, which gets them better employees that work at the VA that will actually pay attention to what you're talking about, and not just go, oh, all right, well, drink water, take a knee, here's some ibuprofen, kind of
rub dirt on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm so, guys, you need to go to the VA. Go, just find out what's available to you, because let's say you don't want anything and you used all your GI Bill, and you're only at 20% or whatever. You can, I think it's 20%, or I don't think the percentage matters when it comes to vocational rehab. You can contact your local vocational rehab person and they'll get you in touch with whoever you need to talk to get you into new courses, classes. When I spoke to mine, they were literally like, what do you want to do? I'm like, well, I was thinking about being a cop. And they're like, all right, well, what else do you want to do? And I thought, well, I'm almost done with my bachelor's. All right, well, we're going to do both. And I'm like, but I'm all out of my GI Bill. And they're like, whatever. The rest of your bachelor's we're going to pay for, and you'll be able to finish in August and then start police academy immediately after. And I was like, hell yeah, because I'm getting paid the whole time. But if I had known, just keep a little bit of your GI Bill left before you contact vocational rehab, I could have gotten an extra $1,000 a month while I'm going to school, because now I'm focusing just on schoolwork. I'm not able to, go work a full-time job. So just knowing little things like that can, you're not going to make bank, but it's going to take some stress off your shoulders for your family. Let's say you got a newborn or something. It's the little things that make a huge difference.
So it's the more you know, right? You remember that old commercial? I think it was NBC or whatever. The more you know.
Is that with the star?
Yeah. They would give a little blurb of information, and then they'd
Meth
say
is
the
bad.
more you know.
The more you know.
Yeah, your brain on drugs.
Yeah.
The more you know. But I think to your point is, the more that you know, you can create a whole different strategy. So I used my GI Bill, to get my degree and my advanced degree. If I would have known then what I know now, right? I may have pursued that differently, right? I may have went the voc rehab route and see, okay, is this going to work for me? Is this going to get me where I want to be? And if so, I get my education or my certifications or whatever through them, and then use my GI Bill beyond that if I need it. If I don't, I can allocate it to my kids, right?
Yep.
So you can create a different strategy to maximize
give it that longevity.
what's available to you because you earned it by serving. And the way you broke down in the numbers, it's all about allocation, right? It's allocation and usage, right? And so, and the guys so it comes a time of the year when you have to go to the hires up, which eventually gets to Congress because they're the purse string people.
Yeah.
And you have to ask for a budget, right? You have to request a budget, and you have to justify that budget. So that kind of goes to what you were talking about. The more veterans that are using what's available to them because they earned it, the more the VA can come in and at that extremely high level to Congress and say, we need this much money to budget it for the next year or the next 5 years or however long they do it, because we have this many veterans that are using benefits, and we estimate that this many more based off of how many folks are getting out of the military on average a year, and how many of those folks were actually deployed, because that's a big difference when it comes to medical and health benefits, right? And with that 20-year war that we had,
Yeah.
there's a lot of 20s and 30s and 40 somethings.
Yeah.
In retrospect,
Have you heard any of the arguments that people make in Congress or Senate or whatever, where they're talking smack about? I mean, there's definitely some corruption in government for sure in the VA. Some of the positions that some of these guys are holding, making like $300,000-$400,000, and their local VA in their area is like crap, like it's stuck in 2003.
Yeah.
So like, we're not saying yes, we just need to make sure the VA gets all the money ever, but we need to make sure that we're getting the money and these veterans are being taken care of, and that the money's being allocated correctly to actually help veterans instead of like go to waste or anything like that. And I've heard so many people try and make arguments that of taking away VA benefits, or we have too many veterans that are at 100%, or I've heard bureaucrats make that argument, and I'm just like, how can you? It's such a small percentage of people that are veterans in the United States that it's like.
I think the number is, and I might not be exact, but I less than 1% of people have served in the uniform of aged eligible people. Less than 1% of the U.S. population
that have volunteered
have served in the uniform. Is less than 1%. So then you look at the folks who, let's take 100%, right? They don't know what it. In order to get an award like that, get from the VA, we know what that takes, right? You don't just say, well, I did 20 years and I walked a lot and I ran a lot and I rucked a lot and so my knees are bad.
They made me do jumping jacks.
So my knees hurt, right? Yeah, that's a given. But you still have to prove it, right?
Right.
Now we know that tinnitus, which is changing, and the knees are almost presumptive. Meaning
a given.
It's a given, right? We're not going to make you get a nexus for it. We're not going to make you show records for it. We're just going to say, if you say your knees hurt, we get it. It's the military is tough on your knees, right? I mean, sometimes you're carrying almost your weight, up and down mountains and all that stuff. And the same thing with the hearing.
Running with all that on your back.
I know as well as probably everybody who's ever been in the military in a range. An M16 range, the first time you pull that, when they say, watch your lane, and you pull that trigger the first time, and you realize you forgot to put your hearing protection back in, and you can't stop and put it in. You have to finish because you're timed, right?
Oh man!
And so you have to wait until that specific magazine is finished and you've laid your laid your weapon on the V notch and stepped backwards. Right?
And you're
That
you're
whole
not
thing.
getting cool little Pelican headsets.
No, they
that,
give you these little foam things that go in there.
Squish this and jam it in your ears.
I think the military is. I mean, I've been out almost 20 years now, but I think they're getting smarter with that because, it's all about money.
Oh yeah.
At the end of the day, and they're paying a lot of people for.
3M.
It's easy to get. It's easy to tinnitus or tinnitus, however you want to pronounce it.
I like the second one more.
Tinnitus.
I don't know.
I say tinnitus, but that one's kind of a given. But they're taking it's going to change. I think last I heard was April. Then they moved it to August.
Yep.
So it's going to change a little bit. It has. They're gonna say, and I could be wrong here, but if I remember right, it's going to have to be tied to some hearing loss. And again, I don't know if that's 100% correct, but and hearing loss is hard. It's very hard to prove.
Oh yeah. And if you have, I was in artillery and I was a diesel mechanic in the military, among shooting at the range and all that other stuff on top of that. And I've been told that my hearing loss isn't that bad, and it's probably ADHD that's causing me to have a hard time processing what people are saying. And, unless I'm taught, like, if there's noise going on in the background, it's a pain in the ass for me to really concentrate on what someone's saying because I'm having such a hard time hearing them. And I've been told, well, your hearing loss isn't that bad. You have tinnitus, but it's not that bad. It's probably mostly ADHD. So I go, okay, and I go to get tested for ADHD. And then they say, well, you just have cognitive issues. What was it? Basically, I have a hard time processing. Auditory processing is what he said. I don't have ADHD, but if you ask, have almost all the people I know, I fit all those blocks. But so I completely agree. It's a pain.
That's just being human.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
your hearing loss is bad, but not that bad.
I mean, it's easy to be distracted.
Yeah.
Maybe not to the degree of ADHD. That's why they call it ADHD. But I mean, I don't know. It's just so back to the original point. It's very difficult, and you have to prove, and then they so with like records and diagnosis, right? You have to prove. You have to have a diagnosis, then you have to prove that it's, it happened in the military and that it's getting worse, right, or not getting better.
Right. Got to have letters.
You got to have that, and then they double check all of that by sending you to the C&P exams.
Yep.
With the third parties, right, to verify that. Okay, what this diagnosis said and what these records says is actually true. Now, that's not for all C&P exams, but...
What are your thoughts on how they do that with subcontractors? How the VA does that with C&P examiners instead of just a VA representative that does the C&P exams?
Actually, they're talking a lot about the VA right now because, they're of all the cuts that are happening in the government, they're trimming the fat, right? No, they're not going to. I tell people, and again, it's just my opinion and what I read and what I hear. And Doug Collins comes on social media all the time. I mean, the VA secretary himself saying, "I know what you guys are hearing, and I want you to hear it from me."
Right.
And I'll paraphrase here, but basically, he's saying, "Look, if it has anything to do with veterans getting taken care of, veteran benefits, none of that's going away." We're trimming the fat around all of that, right? There's I'm sure everybody knows that our government is collectively bloated.
Oh yeah.
And you could go into any government agency, department, whatever, and there's probably 5 people assigned to do the job that one person can do.
Right.
Right? Why that is? It is what it is. So they're trimming that fat, right? I'm sorry, I forgot your original question because I kind of went off on a tangent.
No, it was just about what are your thoughts on C&P exams and how the VA subcontracts third parties?
So what I'm hearing, and I think I actually heard this morning. I listen to a lot of podcasts and stuff, but and I have the VA the official VA YouTube channel, that sends me notifications and all that stuff, but. they were talking about community care.
Care in the community?
You know what, community care. So like the third party, like, so,
Oh, I gotcha.
like, for example, I just went through, I'm going through some back stuff right now, sciatica and that kind of thing. And my doctor, my primary at the clinic, the VA clinic, he put me in for massage therapy. Well, the VA doesn't do that.
Yep.
So it gets farmed out to whoever has a contract with the VA to do that, like a local massage therapy place, right? And it's not like one of those ones where you go to feel good. It's like it's like hurts so good. I mean, while you're there, you're like, oh my God, I'm trying not to cry, right? You got this, and literally, she was a little Asian gal, and she was tiny, and I'm like, my gosh, she had the strongest hands, dude.
Right.
And she would dig her elbows and stuff into you, but at the end, I felt great for a
Amazing.
while.
Yeah.
I went for 90 days, but so it was like that. But that goes through community care, so it's stuff that they don't do at the VA,
Right.
or they may do it at the VA, but they might have it available at your local hospital or clinic, so they have to go to a third party. And what they were saying was it's cheaper to do the third party thing, because really all the VA is paying for is the service.
Yeah, time.
They're not paying for the employee's salary, or they're not paying
That's
for
true.
their benefits.
Yeah.
So the biggest cost that an employer has is their employees.
Right.
So it probably costs 3 times more to have a massage therapist that works actually at the clinic than it would cost them just to say, okay, we sent him to this massage session, and he was there for an hour, and they charge $180 an hour, but we're contracted, so we're only going to give him 90.
Right.
So for that whole hour that I was there, it only cost the VA $90.
Yeah.
As opposed
And
to,
you're helping a small business too.
and you're helping out a small business, but they're saying it's cheaper. So a lot of those cuts that we were talking about with the VA right now, the big focus, just like in all departments of the government right now, is focused on contracts. They're going over these contracts with a fine. Some of them they're not needed. Some
Right.
of them are duplicative, right?
Yeah.
You guys, we're paying
You're
these
doing
guys
the
to do
same
this.
thing, yeah.
We're paying these guys to do this.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
So we're just going to cut this one out, and then we're going to look at this one and go, is this fair?
Right.
I mean, are we not paying too much? So I think as far as the funding goes, it's I have veterans, because I work with veterans, talk to them every day, and they're all nervous about, are we going to lose our benefits? And of course, there's a lot of noise out there on social media and the legacy media and all those folks. Misinformation, which is become a very popular word now.
Well, yeah,
Or-
we got to scare
or
you.
disinformation.
Got to scare you so you vote a certain way
Well, yeah, I guess
against whatever bill.
And so I
that-
just tell them, I say, look, I'm just me. I'm just doing my best life in northern Colorado.
Right.
But because I am in the veteran space, I do try to pay attention, because for me and for the folks that I work with and talk with. And I just tell them, I say, look, unless a credible source comes out and says anything different, benefits and the benefits aren't going to get cut, and the healthcare, I think, will eventually get better. In my experience, almost 20 years of dealing with the VA since I retired, I've never had a bad experience with them.
Knock on wood.
I've
For
never,
real.
and you hear horror stories everywhere,
Yep.
and it's a large bureaucratic organization, and so it's hard to rein that in, right? You got you walk in to check in at a clinic, and the lady's got RBF, and she doesn't even say hi. Are you here to check
What do you
in?
want?
Yeah, I'm here to check in. Last name and last four.
Yeah. Right.
So you give the last name and last four. Sit over there. They'll come out and get you. Well, hello to you too.
Like the
You know?
chick from Monsters Inc. What
Yeah.
do you want?
Yeah.
For
And it's
real.
like, you just want to say, first of all, you're the first person that
Yeah.
people see and encounter when they walk in here. They, chances are they don't want to be here anyway.
Yeah.
But they have to be for whatever the reason that brought them in.
Just trying to get them to go.
And you
trying to
could-
get a veteran to go.
You could
is
at
like
least
pulling
say
teeth.
good morning and give them a smile.
Yeah.
At the bare minimum. It's almost like, anyway,
No.
I digress, but
I'm a big fan of caring the community.
Sure.
I think the only thing I have an issue as far as subcontracting and third party stuff goes is with the C&P exams, specifically on like mental health or things like that. Either you'll get, like, let's say you're going to get a claim and your C&P exam for your PTSD claim is with a third party, not a VA rep. That's going to
which I think is normally the case. Yeah.
Right. So my first time I went in for my PTSD claim was with a third party, and you're going to run into one or two things. It's going to be a badass guy that's like super cool, is here to help, that kind of thing, or it's going to be someone that is just a regular therapist or whatever that doesn't understand what veterans might be going through and kind of like is used to talking to people that have nothing to do with the military. And that's kind of the experience that I had the first time I went in for that claim. And then the second time I went in for that claim, when I redid it, I specifically picked a VA rep, which one of my buddies had recommended. If you're going in for anything having to do with mental health or like a TBI or something, go in with a VA representative if you can for that C&P exam. And it was like night and day. Complete difference with how things were handled, how I was talked to, and obviously it ended up benefiting me in the long run. But like on top of all of that, like I'm going to talk to a therapist with the VA, which I would recommend anybody to do if they're going in for like a PTSD claim or something, is talk to the VA, see what programs they have, see what they can do to, help you work through some of those issues before you even think about going in for a C&P exam, because then you're kind of building up that repertoire of your issues that you're dealing with, what you've gone through, what has helped. And that way, when you go in, it's like they can just read off the chart instead of looking at a checklist, which is the vibe I get from, going in for a C&P exam. They're hitting checklists.
That's the nail on the head, man.
Yeah.
It's a checklist, because you can start asking questions. You can or question them, or you can ask questions. And in my experience, every time I've done that, they just go, "Look, man, this is like." I went in for a thing for mental stuff, and he was asking me crazy questions like, "Oh, this was 10 years ago," but I think it was something to the point of, "Well, if you go into a forest and you get lost, how do you find north?" or something like that. And I'm like, how does that have anything to do with the dreams that I came in here to talk to you about that I've never talked to anybody about?
Right.
And he goes, "This is the criteria that I have to
You're
do.
making me ask this.
This is
man.
what the VA." I said, "Well,
Right.
it's not going to get to the root of what I need to tell you.
Right.
The only way you're going to know is if I tell you, because you're not prompting me with the right questions."
Well, and a lot of vets go in thinking that, okay, well, all I have to do is go in and tell them what happened, what I went through, how it made me feel, the end, and then they'll either like bless off on it and give you the claim. But for a lot of these guys, like you're saying, it is like a checklist. Do you have
It is a
issues
checklist.
4 times a week? How many times
gotta
do you
meet
have these
certain-
issues?
You
Like,
got to meet certain parameters,
yes, and
and you have to use the right words too.
yes,
Like, what's the? I have migraines. Pro rating. It means that it's the type of headache that basically takes you out. Once it gets to that point, and I know pro rating is not the right word, but
Right.
it's close to that.
I'll try and look it up.
Prostating. If you got to use those certain words to get the VA, that person at the Denver Regional or wherever they are, that's sitting at that desk in front of that computer, certain words lets them know from the examiner.
Right.
Okay, using that word makes me know how bad it hurts. So you have to use certain words.
Is
This
it
is
debilitating?
This is some of the best advice I ever got in going to a C&P exam. When you go into a C&P exam, and I've been to, gosh, I don't know how many over the last, I mean, this is not enough. I've probably done more than that.
This many.
Yeah, and I've probably done this many in the last year.
Oh damn.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, they piecemeal you. They do it by bits and pieces.
And it's good to split them up. You don't want to do
Right,
all your claims on the
exactly.
same day.
Right.
Like,
So you show up, right, and your C&P exam starts the minute you get out of your vehicle in the parking lot, right? So they may or may not be watching you either physically or with a camera. So they're looking at, like, if you're going in there for ortho stuff, like maybe bad knees and stuff, and you get out and you're jumping, you're running
Doing
running
backflips.
across the parking lot because you think you're late, and then you jump off the curb and you take the stairs because the elevator's taking too
Right.
long.
open the door and you hunch over.
And then, yeah, I mean, there's people that do that. So
Oh yeah.
this person told me, look at the C&P exam as the VA is just a big insurance company when it comes to compensation. These are the claims adjusters.
Yes.
So you have to talk to them like they're claims adjusters. They're, a claims adjuster, they're just straightforward. There's like, here's the checklist, here's what you told me, and it either meets or doesn't meet. I'm not going to get into it with you. And they can't even give you medical advice.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to give you medical advice.
They're not your friends. Some of them are genuinely nice people. They've got husbands or wives
but
that
those are the ones
vets,
that those are the ones you think they're gonna, and
exactly.
they don't.
Yes.
And then the other one, you like, man, this guy didn't even look at me. I was in there for 10 minutes, and he never looked up from his desk.
Yeah.
And then 90 days later, you got an increase or whatever. So you just never know. But you treat them like insurance adjusters, and never talk about anything previous to your service.
Don't offer up more information.
Don't volunteer.
Answer the question that they're asking.
This is what I'm dealing with.
Yes.
It happened when I was in the service. It's getting worse. Here's how it deals with. Here's how it's creating issues in my life right now and moving forward. And do it as if you were on your worst day. Because if it's mental, or if it's ortho, or if it's neurological with your nerves, or respiratory, whatever it is, you're going to have some days that are better than others and some days that are worse than others. When you're in that C&P exam, it could be one of your good days, but you got to talk to them like it's one of your bad days.
This is a spiel I give a lot of guys, especially if they're having issues with the VA going in. Should I redo this claim? And the spiel I give is, you need to be on your worst day. You don't want to be, because let's say Tuesday this week, I'm feeling great. I can bend down and touch my knees, or I can touch my toes, or whatever it may be. You don't want to be feeling amazing when you go in there, because you're not there. The claim that you're going in for is, I hurt this much. I'm having this much of an issue on my worst day. So, some guys will have you come in, okay, go ahead and hop up on here, and you're getting up, jumping up on the seat, or you're bending down to pick something up, or hey, can you take your shoes off? They'll watch how you're taking your shoes off. And I'm not saying this stuff so that people can scam the government or anything like that. I'm saying it as, you might be able to do such and such, but it's painful. You need to vocalize that. You need to let the VA or the C&P examiner know, this, I can go up till here till it causes me pain.
Yep.
I tell guys, go grout some tile the night before. Go do a workout to whatever you can before you go to your exam, so that when you're going in, this is how bad I hurt on my worst days. And that's the advice I give a lot of guys. And after you do those exams, they literally send you a packet telling you got whatever percentage, and here's why you got that percentage. If and you were able to bend forward 20 degrees. If you had only been able to bend forward 10 degrees, you would have gotten 20% or 30%. So like they literally write it out for you.
They tell you what you need to get that.
Exactly. And those, it seems like they're kind of just like telling you, you got this and you can't get this now. But they're telling you, here's literally the checklist they're going off of and why you got this percentage and not this.
Well, it kind of sounds like we're laying out ways to play the
Yeah,
system.
yeah, right.
But,
Right.
I mean, it sounds that way on the surface, but it's not, because you still have to prove it.
Yes.
You still have to prove it. You wouldn't even be there, right? Like my knees, I mean, I'm other than young. I'm not as young as I was when I retired or when I joined, obviously.
I'm only 32.
Yeah. And I mean, the wear and tear on my knees, and I'm not heavy, but I'm heavier than I was back in the day, My knees are not getting any better. They're getting worse. And so, I put in for an increase. And when you go in there, there's a couple ways they do it. Sometimes they'll put you up on a table and they'll put that little protractor thing and they'll see how far you can bend it. Sometimes they'll just tell you to stand up. The last 2 times I went for increases on my knees, and I didn't get them. I didn't get it.
Right.
I've been for an increase 3 times on my knees over the last 19 years since I retired, and I've been denied every time. So it's not easy. You gotta prove it, and there's parameters you have to meet. This last 2 times I went, they just asked me to stand up, and then they say, pick your foot up and pull it backwards, right? They want to see how far you can bend your knee. And so I tell them, I go, I'm gonna pull it back as far as I can, but I'm gonna tell you when it starts at the point where it hurts. So the point I'm trying to get to you, Doc, is I can bend it farther than I can bend it X amount of degrees.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it doesn't freaking hurt. So
Right.
like, how much you got to bend your knee to get up when you're going upstairs? That hurts.
Right.
But people get so used to it that it's almost like, you expect me to wince every time I step. Sometimes I do. Sometimes they go, I get a little sharp pain and it almost gives out, right? But I'm so used to going up and down stairs that your
pain tolerance is was once
that
an
doesn't
8.
mean it's not freaking hurting.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that sometimes I want to go up the stairs because I need the steps.
Yeah.
Right? I need to get to my 10,000 steps or whatever. But it's just not happening today. I'm taking the elevator.
But that's why I tell people, and again, we're not doing this for the people that are trying to like skirt the government. Like the dude who was in for 3 years and was in a desk the whole time.
You can't skirt it, man. These guys, they have so many checks and balances.
Right.
Yeah.
It's more for the veterans that are genuinely oblivious to what those checklists are, and like to what you're saying, hey, C&P examiner, here's where it hurts, but this is how far I can bend it back. Don't even bend it back that far. Go till it hurts.
Yeah.
And stop.
Here's where it hurts.
They're going to downplay what you're going through, and they're going to try and talk you into keep going. No, this is how far I can go before it causes pain.
I think the best advice is anybody who's never been, if you're just starting the process for whatever reason, wherever you are in life, if you've never been to a C&P exam, talk to somebody who has.
Exactly.
And say, what can I expect? What should I expect? You never really know for sure because you don't know who the examiner is.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I just went to one yesterday for nerve damage in my shoulder. It was a nurse practitioner. It wasn't even a PA or a doctor or a specialist. It was a nurse practitioner.
Well, they know how to look at checklists.
Well,
No,
yeah, I just thought it was odd.
Right.
And actually, when you get these letters from these third parties like QTC and VES and OptumServe,
I've dealt with all of them.
OptumServe was what I went to yesterday, and it's the first time I've ever dealt with them. It wasn't a bad experience, but based off what I was claiming and what has come back and what hasn't, I thought that I was going to. I got an appointment for peripheral nerve, other than diabetic issues, right? I guess there's some diabetes type things that can create some nerve issues. So So I'm dealing with sciatica, plantar fasciitis, all those things. So and that's what I had claimed. So back and feet, and so I'm thinking, okay, I'm doing a nerve thing for my back and my feet. I put in for an increase in my shoulder. That came back as staying the same. They didn't increase it.
Right.
And I get in there, and she goes, "Yeah, we're here to look at your mononeuropathical thing, nerve damage in your shoulder." And I went. She goes, "You look a little." I was like, "Well, first of all, they don't tell you what you're being seen for. It just says peripheral nerve." And I said, I claimed my back and feet, so I assumed that's what it was. She goes, "No, on the order here it says your shoulder." And I'm thinking in my mind, they already came back with a decision on that, and they didn't increase it. So why am I? So
Right.
I don't know what's going on there. I guess I'll have to wait and see. I could call the 800 number and ask, but honestly, you really don't. You don't know anymore. You're actually more confused by you talk to that person sitting behind the computer that's in the call center, than what you thought when you actually made the phone call. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see on that. But you know what? I would say that 90 days, usually 90 to 120 days max, you've got your decision anywhere. And I'm not saying it takes 90 days, but I mean, some people get them in a month.
Yeah.
Some people get them in a week.
I got mine on a couple of them. Out of all of them, a couple of them I got an answer within like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But I've got people I'm helping that have been waiting like 3 months.
Well, the people who get it, I mean, the point is they're working them.
Right.
And they're 10 years ago, they were so far behind. People were waiting years and years and years.
I believe it.
And the ones that are waiting years and years and years now are the ones that they're asking for these higher level reviews, which can take forever. Or they're not presenting the right, they're not proving their case.
Right.
Right.
You don't have notes.
But,
you don't
but
have
I guess what I'm
letters from
saying is
people.
the average time, and a lot of vets ask me this, and I'm not a VSO. And I don't give advice. I just say, this is my experience. This is what I've read. Right about in my experience over the last couple of years, 90 to 120 days is about average of what it takes.
Do you think the third-party groups for the C&P exams are incentivized to not only just downplay, but kind of like, oh, well, no, not service-connected, 0. Like, do you think they're incentivized to do that so that the VA looks at it and goes, well, these guys are really doing their job. Let's send them more people for claims.
That's possibly
That's tinfoil hat.
I don't know, but I think, and again, this is just my opinion. I think the folks that are up there making those decisions, because it goes to a quality control person once a decision's made, right? I think they go by a set of parameters just like the C&P people do.
Right.
Okay, if it meets A, B, and C, then you get D. If you get A, B, and not C, then you get E. Or, so that might mean denied, or it might mean, okay, it's service connected, but it's 0% rated.
Yep. That's why I say go till it hurts. Don't explain everything you're doing, everything you're saying, so that people can genuinely understand.
Yeah. But again, I just want to make sure that I don't want people to think that we're trying to teach people how to game the system, because
just to help vets. Honestly,
the VA again, they get a bad rap, and rightly so in a lot of cases. And I think that's, in my opinion, it's the upper echelon people, and then of course the RBFs that you run into when you watch it and try to. Yeah.
Well, you're the first.
But I'll
person.
tell you what. As soon as I get the nurse to come out and call my name in the waiting room, and I mean they're so pleasant, and you're having conversation on the way back, and when they try to weigh you, and they don't even let you take your coat or your wallet or nothing off, and they weigh you, and I'm like, you do take 5 to 7 pounds off, right? Because I'm fully dressed here, I don't
have shoes on. That adds like.
I don't want you to think that I'm chubbier than I really am, and that kind of and Doc looks at that, right? Doc's like, you got to lose 5 pounds. Well, if you'd have let me weigh in my underwear, I probably would be 5 pounds lighter, and the doctors. My primary at the clinic I go to now is cool.
Have you kept that primary for a while?
I've had him for going on 2 years.
Mine's changed every month.
No,
this
guy,
2 years.
I've had him. He's. I think my clinic's a little smaller than yours, though. This is different.
Every month.
But I go to but then we have the regional hospital as well, and I go there. There's some things that they farm me out over that way,
right?
Because they just don't have it in the clinic, but they do have it. And those folks, again, the ones that check you in are RBFs, right? RBF, resting bitch face, for those who don't know.
Most of
but once you get past them, you know, the folks that take that call you back, they take your blood pressure and your weight, and hey, let's make sure we're talking about the right thing while you're here, and they'll ask you a few questions, and then the doc comes right in. You know, I've never sat. I mean, if I have an 8 o'clock appointment, usually right around 8 o'clock, they're calling me in there. Sometimes early. If I show up early, I get in there early. I'm never sitting around going,
I got stuff to do.
Why the hell they get? You know, sometimes you go, why you give me an appointment? Now, I've gone through some civilian doctors through TRICARE because I have TRICARE because I have dependents, right?
Right.
And they can't go to VA. So. But I go to them for some things, and it's like you gave me an appointment for 2 o'clock, told me to be here at 1:45. It's 2:30.
Yeah. No.
Now that doesn't. I think the reason that doesn't happen a lot in the VA world is because even when you were on active duty, remember when you go in to see the doc, 15 minutes you're lucky to get to spend with those guys.
Yeah.
I mean,
they've
got so many people they got to see. You're in and out, and it's the VA doctors are the same way. You're in and out, man. I don't think I've been in a consult.
Well, most of them are ex-military.
Longer than 15 minutes.
So that's like normal.
And here's the crazy thing. Here's something that I always look back on because you know, when you retire, they tell you anytime, but you know, if you retire, you've been around 20 plus years, so you know when you do your final out. Your exam, you document everything, anything, everything, la-di-da-di, everybody, right? And it's hard to do that. It's hard because you're sitting here and I felt like I was complaining, like I was crying, like I was, you know.
Right.
But I'm like, this is important. Everything needs to be documented. So every little thing. I almost burnt my own thumb off one time. Burning wax to shine the floors.
Oh God!
And I had to go to and I made sure it was on there. I mean, I don't have any scars or anything. Right. Nobody would know unless I told you. But it's on there. And the doc, this was at Fort Leavenworth because I was on recruiting duty, so I was in Omaha. So closest I could either went to Fort Riley or Fort Leavenworth. Leavenworth was a little bit closer. The doc was this old Filipino guy. He had to be 103. If he was anything. And he barely, I mean, I don't say he barely spoke English. He spoke good English, but he was hard to understand.
Right.
And so I was trying to make sure he understood what I was. So I was asking him questions, and I was like, and then he would ask, I said, did you get that? Or are you asking me this? Or are you asking me that? And he was getting frustrated with me. You know, he didn't want.
I'm stupid.
He didn't want to. No, he didn't want to be there. He was just like, let's just get this guy in and out, man. And I'm like, dude, this is not a 6-month checkup for a 24-year-old for re-enlistment or whatever.
Right.
I'm a retiree. I've been around 20 years, and we need to get this right.
Yeah.
And I was getting mad at that dude, man. I was getting really mad. And he got even madder because I looked at everything. You know how you have to sign it. And most people just sign it.
Right.
I read everything.
Smart.
And I probably wouldn't have if I could have understood him, if we had a better communication.
Right. If you felt a little bit more taken care of.
Not
that he wasn't.
Better communication. I mean, you can be 103 and be, you know, grumpy all you want. I don't care. But I'm not sure that I don't quite understand what you're saying, and I don't know if you quite understand what I'm saying.
Well, and you know this is the last exam before you're getting out.
Yeah, and then
so, like,
if something comes up,
important.
and you say, hey, man, this is because of my military service, this is what happened. You can see it plain as day in your mind, and you can give every little detail what went down and how it affected you. But if it's not on there, like shin splints, man. I got shin splints one time. I would run and ruck and no issues. And guys would get shin splints, and I'd be like, whatever. Sometimes you think they're faking it, and you know the whole deal. But I went to ANOC, dude. I went to ANOC at Fort Lee, Virginia, and after our first run, I got shin splints, and I was like, oh, they freaking hurt. And I always ran in the fast group. And I started running with the middle group, and then I would fall out of that. And the commandant, the sergeant major of the academy, he would come. He was always a straggler patrol because he couldn't run as fast as everybody else. Right. So he's straggler patrol, and he got, "Come on, sergeant." I'm like, "Sergeant major, my shin splints are killing me, man." And I felt like I was making an excuse, but it was legit. So
he's like, "Why do you think I'm back here?"
I tell you what, but it only happened once, and it took a while to get over it. But I made sure, hey man, when I was in ANOC in this month of this year, I had shin splints really bad.
That's all I tell guys. If I'm talking to anybody that's actively in or National Guard or whatever before they're getting out of their term, like, go to sick call, go wherever you need to go, make sure everything's notated, keep the records, like just exactly what you did before you got out. Like it's just little things like that help whenever they're going back through and reviewing your stuff before your exam. It makes a difference.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of folks don't go on sick call for little stuff, right?
Right. Or for big stuff.
And really, nor should you. But if it's something that's recurring, and it happened while you're in active duty, at a minimum, you bring that up on your final out.
Yeah.
Right. Look, I had this thing that's just it's nagging. I twisted my knee one time, and I didn't feel like I need to. I just kind of walked it off, and it twinges every now and then when I'm doing physical activity, but not enough to where I need to go on sick call every other day or something. Bring it up, man. And I know at least when I was in, there was, if you went to sick call too many times,
you're sick call ranger.
You started getting people started messing with you.
Oh yeah.
You're malingering.
Some people do that. Even I've heard so many stories where guys are like, "Yeah, I never went to sick call," because you would get not reprimanded, but you would get put on the spot.
Yeah, I mean. The guys want you there training with them. Hey, I got to do all these push-ups. You got to do them too.
But guys will downplay whatever it is they're going through to kind of validate that. And it's like, no, dude, if you're hurting, like, go to sick call. So, like, that's why I kind of overdo it with make sure it's notated. Yeah. If you're having an issue with whatever it may be, make sure you got it written down, because I've talked to so many guys now that are out that are like, I never went to sick call. It's like, by the way, it's really hard for me to get a claim. And it's like, yeah.
I was kind of one of those guys, man. I mean, it was kind of a badge of honor.
But at least you went at the end.
Well,
that's what I'm saying.
But I had been around long enough to know.
Think of the 3-year guy.
This is the last time, man. If you don't put it on there now, you didn't want to take the time to go tell a doc about it when you were dealing with it,
right?
Because it was not a big deal, but it was just nagging. Well, you get out, and 5, 10, 15, 20 years later, that nagging injury becomes chronic.
Yep.
Right? And you're going, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that. I have an elbow injury like that.
Right.
That. It was just nagging when I was in, but I think it's part of that nerve issue that, from my shoulder. Car wreck, somebody assholed me on I-25.
Oh, God.
Heading from Denver to Fort Carson. Kind of messed up my neck and my shoulder a little bit, and that's where that came from. But I was on active duty when it happened, and I went to sick call, and I got it, and I had to go to physical therapy and chiropractor and all that stuff, but I made sure it was all documented, because even though it wasn't a training,
right,
I was on active duty when it happened.
Most of the people I'm talking to are like, they did 2 terms or something. They didn't do the full 20. I think you and like 3 other people are the only ones I've talked to or helped out with VA stuff that have like done the full 20. Most of the guys I'm talking to were in for 3-4 years or 6 or whatever.
They're invincible.
Exactly.
They're
And
invincible.
it's like, dude, trust me, 20 years from now, like,
Me and my dad are examples of that. If it happened, I'm like, I didn't know. If you have a, let's say you get cut or you have a surgery or something while you're on active duty and you have a scar, did you know that that scar can hurt? Right? I know a guy in Greeley had shoulder. He was in the Marine Corps, had serious shoulder issues and had surgeries on his shoulder. And his scars actually physically hurt.
Mm.
I mean, they're painful, and you can get a VA a rating
like a claim for that.
Yeah, you can for 10-20% for your scars hurting. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Which is why we said it here on this.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
don't take anything I'm telling you. I'm just speaking experience.
Yeah. It's all to help people that have no idea.
It's just guidance
VA
and
works.
mentorship. It's nothing official. That,
Right. Is there anything else that you do to help veterans for like finding homes, finding work, anything like that?
all the above.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any groups you can think of?
Are you talking about like a networking group?
Yeah, like in Northern Colorado. Or
Yeah,
something.
there's a group called the Northern Colorado Veterans Networking. Yeah. NCVN, Northern Colorado Veterans Network. Yeah.
How does all that work, and what's kind of the goal with that? Because me and you have been working on that for a little bit, but it was definitely your brainchild, and I'm just glad I'm here to help in any way I can with it.
So, when I started working with veterans in Northern Colorado, I started finding out all the different resources that are available up here. That's everything from the VA at the federal level to the VA at the state level to 501c3s to, just all these different advocacy groups that are available. And I'm like, no, I'm okay. And it's like, man, how can we get, because it's basically kind of one of the themes of our conversation is people don't know what they don't know. And we want to make sure that they know what's out there so they can pursue what they need to pursue and know how to do that. Right. So it's like, how do we get all these people together in one place, to where it's actually advantageous to themselves, networking, but ultimately at the end of the day, veterans and their spouses, and get them employed, gainfully employed, in a situation where they can grow and create a career, right? Or build on something and then move on to something else. I mean, not just like, hey, you're gonna go work the drive-through at McDonald's. I mean, veterans they can do that themselves, right? Yeah. So we help get them job ready, and we work with employers to get them. But so I've got this rolling around in my head, and I went to a workforce veteran-centric workforce conference in DC, and there were some guys in Iowa that were doing some great things for veterans, and one of them was a networking group that started back in 2018. So they've been doing it for about 7 years, and I thought, man, we can do the same thing here. So I actually got a hold of Brian Miller, the guy who runs it there, started it. I said, hey, I would like to do the same thing in Northern Colorado that you're doing, man. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. I know you got it going on. And one of the things he said to me was, well, we can show you how we did it. But he said, I would recommend that you get a partner to do it with. So that's when I asked you. And then remember we got on a virtual call with him, and he had a PowerPoint presentation.
Oh yeah.
And he was just laying it out, and then so we just kind of took that, came here, put some things together, and just ran with it. And that was in October 2024, last year.
Well, you actually brought it up to me outside of a VSO, which was even funnier because I was out there dropping off magazines with the for
at the Workforce Center
out there in Greeley at the Workforce Center.
Yeah.
So it was just serendipitous that you're like, hey,
well, I knew
you again.
I knew that you know what you were doing on your own time,
right,
in terms of helping veterans, and I thought this would this is a young guy who's been he's a young guy, but he's been there, he's done that, and he's doing it right. He's still involved with the whole veteran world and the veteran community up here in Northern Colorado. So I just thought it would be a good fit.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Man.
And then that was in October. And then we actually had our first event in December. So we do, one a month.
Oh, yeah.
And we do it in a social setting. We don't want to we want to invite people to a meeting.
Right.
It's like, look, this is just a networking group. It's social. We try to do it. We have a lot of venues that are open to helping, hosting veterans in our group.
Crazy amount of businesses that are owned by veterans.
But I like to, I kind of lean towards, the veteran-owned businesses.
Oh, yeah.
So we reached out to a few, and they were like, heck yeah, man. So, we do one in Boulder County, we do one in Larimer County, and we do one in Greeley County, and we just kind of rotate. And we'll have we had one in Loveland.
That was a pretty good turnout.
That was a good one in December. And then we had one in January in Greeley, and we had one in February in Longmont. And now we're going back to Loveland. So this month we'll be in Loveland.
Or is it? I thought it was going to be in Greeley at the hot dog.
No, that's next month. That's April.
That's right. So many.
That's a save. That's a save the date.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's actually on tax day, April 15th.
Heck yeah.
Yep.
No.
And, so the place that we have been doing, the first one and the second one coming around is, Crooked Beach Brewery in Loveland. It's owned by a retired Air Force gentleman and his wife.
Do you know what date that is?
It is March 18th. 5:30 to 7.
And I'll put it at the end of the podcast as well so that people can, for the one coming up and then the one.
Yeah. And then the one in Greeley will
after.
be same place we did it in January, which is Crave Hot Dog and Barbecue, co-owned by a Marine.
I love it. All the people that, not just meeting there, but I mean, God knows how many people and veteran foundations and groups that you work with, along with the people that I've met as well. Like, that's it. It's amazing, and it gives you so many different contacts on anything you can think of. If just to kind of like run through a couple different groups of people that were at the one at in Greeley at
Crave.
Yes, at Crave. Could you run through a list of some of the people that were there as far as like titles?
Off the top of my head, we had some folks there from the VA clinic in Loveland. Mental health professionals were there. And it was very interesting when they were there because we found out that there is a pilot program in and it's the only place in the whole country that does it for mental health, where this is what I was told.
Yeah,
again,
right.
I wouldn't write this in stone, but what the ladies told me was that they're a pilot program for the entire VA, and they're only doing it in Northern Colorado, where they'll actually go out. So it's kind of an outreach for mental health. So
that's right.
They go all the way down to Sterling, which is I don't know how that's a ways from here.
To your residence.
A couple hours, yeah. Your residence, or hey, I'm in Sterling, I can meet you at the local community center, or I just can't get to Loveland,
right.
Or don't want to go to Loveland, or
no matter what it may be, it's
so they do outreach. And from what the ladies told me, it is a pilot program, and Northern Colorado is the only place that does it right now. So that was interesting. And when I was watching, we had 47 people at that event, and it was only our second event. But to watch the faces in the crowd when they were saying that, people were, wow, that's great. Then we had, we had some local employers that were there. We had the
Fort Collins Police Department.
Fort Collins
was there.
Police Department. Weld County Sheriff was there. Walgreens was there.
Who was it that was at the last one that we had down in Longmont? One of
That
them
was Fort
works-
Collins.
No. The one down in beneath Longmont that we had at that brewery. Fort Collins Police Department was there as well, but it was they did snowmobile resort setups for veterans, and I can put that at the end as well.
That was in Longmont.
Was that Longmont?
Yeah, that was the last event. Mary Scott, I think is her name. She does retreats.
That's right.
Yeah,
And,
she does retreats.
Who was? Damn, I'm trying. I wish I had written all these names down.
If I know we were going to talk about it, I'd have brought them.
Right? I know, right?
I actually have a list of everybody who was at each event. We had another big hit. Another big hit was the VSOs.
Yes,
We had the three VS. We have three really good VSOs in Weld County
that are out there
at
to
the
help
Workforce
you.
Center.
Genuinely want
In
to
case
help
you don't know who that is, veteran service officers, they're the ones who help you with your benefits, right? So Service Connection,
do that
education.
route. Yeah. Do that route before you try contacting these companies that are like, we'll get you 100%.
Yeah, don't
pay us this.
Don't-
and blah, we'll take a cut of your back pay. Like,
Yeah, don't do that.
go through
your
local
VSO. And if you're not happy with the VSO, go to a different county VSO. You don't have to go to the VSO that's in your county.
right.
If,
That's the cool thing I didn't know that I found out at that meeting.
And the thing in northern Colorado is, Fort Collins, Greeley, and Longmont and Boulder are not that far apart.
Right.
So between those locations, you can find a VSO. I mean, I've had some experience working in Larimer at Fort Collins. The VSO group up there, phenomenal.
100%.
Great.
They're the ones that helped me get my last couple claims, and I can't
Who was it?
remember his name.
Duffy?
Yes. He is
Navy
my
guy.
favorite.
Navy guy.
He's the bomb. I
Now-
have sent his name and number.
Oh,
card
he is.
to so many.
And I
vets.
wish I could remember the lady who supervises them. Oh my gosh, she is
Yeah.
just the best. She's been doing this for like 20 years. And if she doesn't know,
she'll find out.
but she will find out. But most of the stuff, I mean, she's been doing this so long.
She verified that mine was
Trisha's her
Mine
name.
was permanent and total PNT 100%,
Uh-huh.
and then gave me a list of all the things that, as far as benefits that come with that, I started tearing up because I'm like, my kids will be able to go to school for free, and like,
Chapter 35.
Champ VA for
Champ
free,
VA for the wife.
Like, it's crazy the amount of benefits that are out there. To your point earlier, you don't know what you don't know. So contacting these people, we're not getting money from these people. We're not getting any benefits from telling you to go to the VSO compared to, these companies that are like, we'll hire a lawyer.
We're just two Joes that are talking. You literally,
Exactly.
you're Joe.
G.I. Joe.
You're G.I. Joe. I mean, we're just talking, man, and we're doing things too.
Yes.
Right. So we're helping the veterans, and we're talking about our experiences and what we know or what we think we know.
Yeah. It's a
And so
toss-up.
don't none of this is legal advice or any of that stuff. But it's I've been out 19 years. For 18 of those years, I was in the private sector. Working in recruiting and staffing and hiring and all that thing. And I've only been in officially, and I've helped veterans through that. But I will say embarrassingly that I didn't know what I should have known.
Right.
Even being a retiree, being out 18 years. And in this last year, when I kind of moved back into the veteran space, I've learned so much. And it's just like, if only there was somebody who could have just put a bug in my ear about this, that, and this and that, and this and that. 10 years ago, let alone 20 years ago. I wish there was somebody I wish I'd have had this conversation when I was at year 19 and I was going through, I was getting ready to do all my final out processing and stuff.
That's the specific reason why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Because it could just be some 2-minute conversation that you're hearing like, well, I didn't even think about that. And you might do more research on your own. Or
Do you know that there's some people that'll do a 3-year enlistment And again, I know a lot about the Army because that's where I was, but
because it's the best
there's some exactly hooah. There are I mean there are some things that are similar, across the branches, but every service has its own culture and own way of doing things too. At the same time, so I speak Army. That's what I speak. And again, I lost my train of thought on where I was going with that. But I was going somewhere really cool.
You wish you had this info back at 19 years, and then
Yeah.
we were kind of. That is specifically why I'm doing this, for that 2 minutes that somebody might hear.
I know what I was going to say.
Go for it.
There are guys or gals that will do 3 years in the Army, and they'll come in for the minimum. I mean, there is a 2 year and some change enlistment. 7 years in the recruiting command. I never seen anybody take it because it's hardly ever available. So it's just 2 years plus your training time, right? And I think it's really only
You're halfway done.
I think it's really only for combat arms. I could be wrong there too, but anyway, the minimum besides that is 3 years, and so they'll come in, they'll do their 3 years, and they'll get out because all they want to do is just go back to where they came from or move on, and they don't even know they're a veteran.
That's a good point.
They don't. You'll talk to them and they'll go like, "Well, don't you have to be a veteran for that?" Well, you are a veteran. No, I didn't do 20 years. You ain't got to do 20 years.
They don't consider themselves a vet.
They don't think they're a vet.
Yeah.
They don't. They're like, I didn't know I was a veteran. No, you're a veteran, dude. Or dudette.
Right.
You're a veteran. You came in for a 3 year enlistment. You did your 3 year enlistment, and you got out. Other than the dishonorable,
right?
Anything better than a dishonorable, you're a veteran with benefits.
Oh yeah.
Oh really? Well, what does that mean? Oh, we got to sit down and have a talk. Let's get some coffee.
Open the book.
Let's get some coffee and let's.
No, I love that. I think stories like that are what motivate me to keep doing stuff like this, because this is, again, on all of our own time, volunteering.
Yeah, it's we do it on our own.
We're not getting paid to do this, and I genuinely just want to get that information out there, because you don't know what you don't know. And if you hear some Joe Blow talking about DV plates, I didn't know that after whatever percentage you get.
Depends on the state.
Yeah, depending on the state. And I mean, just that you can get disabled veteran plates, which make it to where you're not having to pay tax and registration for your vehicle every year.
So, I just got
Makes
mine.
a huge difference.
I just got mine. I'm like, I have two vehicles. I have a car and I have a truck. And I've lived in this state for 6 years now, and I knew that the state did it, but I just I never took the time to go, okay, what's the parameters? And I'm like, well, I meet those parameters.
Yep.
So my car comes due, 2 months ago. It's like $278, to re-tag my car.
That's better than mine.
Free. And then I'm at the DMV, and the lady goes, do you want the $29? Pay the extra $29, and you can get into the state parks for free. And I go, yeah. If I'm getting out of a $278 bill, I'll pay a $29 bill. Heck yeah.
You don't even have to do that.
I know.
Okay, sorry.
So she didn't know that either, right? So then she goes, oh, wait a minute. We put that on there, and your bill is still $0.
Hell yeah.
So, I got that. And then my second vehicle, which is coming due next month, I pay a $50 one-time fee for the second one. And then it's free after that. So for your
wait, which thing? So from what I've been told, you can only get your DV plate, your disabled veteran plate, on one vehicle.
Two.
And it wipes out that tax.
Nope.
I can pay to get a DV plate put on my other one.
It only costs you $50 one time.
But I still have to pay registration and taxes on that vehicle, correct? The second one?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
If that's true, I've been
are
getting...
you sure?
Yeah, right.
I'm 90...
We're going to do research
I'm
on
90... yeah, fact checkers, CNN fact checkers are going to be coming after me.
I'll make a little thing pop up.
A little bubble.
Yep, that's exactly
I'm 90% sure, because I'm going to be doing this for next month for my truck.
I hope you're right.
So my cars, the state now knows that I'm that I meet the parameters. So they gave me the DV plates for my car. And if you go onto the DMV website, it'll show you this. For the second, you can do it up to a second vehicle. Nothing, you can't do 5 or 6 of them, but a second, because most households have 2 vehicles. You pay $50 one time. That'll get your car registered, get your plates, get your new tags and everything, and then it's free after that. So both of your vehicles after that first year are free.
I have DV plates on both my vehicles because I work with so many foundations.
I'm 90% sure that that's how it works.
We're gonna find out.
So
that little pop bubble that just popped
up
on
the DMV. Go on the DMV website, and if it's not clear, just call them.
Right.
But that's what I understand when I read it.
I hope you're right.
And that's what I asked the lady.
Right.
When I was getting my plates for my car.
Well, with the parks piece that you were talking about, you can get a lifetime pass to go for your vehicle, and you can get, if you have 2 vehicles, you can just go in your other vehicle and get the pass too. But they'll just have you fill out a little clipboard.
Well, it's on your. There's a seal
on your driver's license
on your registration.
I didn't know
so
that.
Yeah, there's a seal on your registration.
I just told them, hey, do you guys have military discount? And they said, are you a disabled veteran? And I went, yeah. And they went, here's a card, sign the back.
No, I have one of those for the federal parks.
Okay,
that's for the federal parks, not the state parks.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so
I thought it was kind of all the same thing.
So I have a card that can get me into any federal park for free. I just show it. Now the $29 that I paid, that I didn't pay,
right,
gets me into the state parks for free.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And there's
just
a little
been getting into parks for free.
Hey man,
I know.
There's a little seal that comes on your registration.
Okay.
That shows that you paid the $29 fee, because I did pay that fee last year. I physically paid them.
I think my wife's paid something along those
lines.
I'm going to have to do more research on that.
But if you have DV plates, you can get that seal and not pay for it.
We're all learning here today.
Yeah. And so for those, earlier when you were talking about what do you think about these people who think that we get too much and this and that, and it's like, I suppose I don't know. I suppose I can empathize with that thought a little bit. Do I sympathize with it? No, because I know better.
Yeah.
But I suppose coming from that perspective, because they don't know what we go through, what we do to earn that.
And we'll be the first ones to downplay it
not deserve
ourselves.
it, but earn it. And there are veterans out there that probably more than not that aren't getting what they should be getting.
Yeah.
Because they're not pursuing it for whatever reasons. And we've touched on a lot of those reasons today. So for those people, like I saw a video the other day where some lady was sitting in her car and she wanted to do a TikTok on, she doesn't like all the discounts and all the different things that
I saw that.
Oh, it blew up in her face. I mean, people came at her.
I don't wish bad things for people, but
that's kind of one of those things. I honestly, listening to that video, I said she just doesn't know.
Yeah. It's ignorance.
It is ignorance, and ignorance is not a mean word.
Yeah.
People have made it a mean word,
right?
But ignorance just means lack of education, lack of knowledge, and so it was up from a place of ignorance, and so again, I empathized with her, but when they came at her, I did not sympathize.
Yeah, right.
At all.
Like, you ran into that door.
You stepped. You probably that's probably something you shouldn't step into unless you know exactly what you're stepping into.
It's a very small group. Like you were saying, it's less than 1%.
Less than 1% have worn the uniform. Yes.
Less than 8% of, and I said this on that show I went on. No worries. I'll cut it out.
Cut it out.
I said this on that Jubilee show I was on. Less than 8% or less than 7% of U.S. citizens are military veterans.
Yes.
So we are a very small percentage, and we'll be the first ones to downplay joining the service and putting our lives on the line. But just think about that for a second. That in itself is it is a traumatic thing, because I've gotten in arguments with other soldiers when I was in. What's going to happen if we get called out on the front lines? what did we volunteer for? We volunteered to be not cannon fodder, but to be the guys and girls that go out there, that put their lives on the line. Like, we understand, which is why we write wills before we deploy, which is why, we get our things in order before we go overseas, because we know chances of dying are increased exponentially. And I don't think it's something a lot of veterans really think about, because to me, it is traumatic. You volunteer to put yourself out there to die for your country. We'll be the first ones to be like, I didn't die. I drank a lot and did whatever and had a bunch of fun with my brothers and, yada, yada. And then I got out. Like, so we'll be the first ones to downplay it. But if you genuinely think about it, that's exactly what we did. And that's exactly what we're doing. What other younger generations are doing when they're volunteering. They're putting their lives on the line. We might not be at war right now. God forbid, how many other things are going on right now that make you think the chances of a draft are increased exponentially? The chances of something happening or us getting pushed into a war or proxy war have increased over the past 5 years, 4 years. It's not something a lot of guys and girls think about that are vets, but I think it's something that people like this lady who are like, I don't think they should have military discounts. Like, at the least, we should have military discounts.
First of all, it's only 10%.
Exactly.
So if I buy something for $10, for those of us, I know the 10-1 thing, easy math. I get $1 off.
Right.
I mean,
we should have to pay taxes.
It depends
in
on
my mind.
it depends on your perspective.
Right.
Right. Maybe $1 in 10 is a lot to her. It just came. I wasn't mad at her. I don't get offended. Nothing offends me.
Right.
I mean, it's like you might say something that'll piss me off. I'm not offended though.
No, I'm not gonna lose sleep
You can
over
say
it.
whatever you can say whatever you want to say. If I don't like what you said, I can do one of two things. I can turn around and walk away, or I can talk to you about it.
Right.
I mean, I'm not gonna get offended.
No. Not losing sleep
I
over
don't even know if I know. I don't know if I've ever been offended. I don't know if I know how to be offended. I either get mad or I laugh. One of the two.
Yeah.
Or I
think
just shake
we've
my
all
head.
said, not you and me, but like your time in service, you've heard enough horrible jokes.
Oh yeah.
Just sitting around with your brothers.
But in the service, they're just that. They're just jokes, man.
Yes.
It's just.
But
and what makes
your
it
tolerance for getting offended is like,
yeah.
it's gonna.
But what makes a joke funny?
Right.
Because it's real.
Yeah.
I mean, you can relate to it, whatever that person said, because it's real.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it funny. I mean, if it's made up, it's like, I don't know. It could have went that way. It could not have went that way. That's why comedians talk about real life.
Yeah. And it's funnier when they do it.
Because it's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's real life stuff. And it's when you talk about some of the real life stuff, it's funny as hell.
The best stories I have are the ones that I've had in service. My most exciting, crazy, almost went to jail, like
me too.
Craziest experiences have been in my time in service, which I think is a reason some of those people that are only in for 3 years or something for a super short time don't consider themselves veterans, because let's say they were, S2 or S1 or something, and they've just been sitting in a building in a cubicle their entire term and just, okay, bye. Like to them, it's like, yeah, I went to my job.
I would say that, again, speaking veteran to veteran, I would say, look, man, okay, so you were S1, you were PAC, right? You were admin.
And I'm not
right?
trying to
and I love
that.
I mean, but the point I'm getting at is somebody has to do it.
Right.
Because if you're not there to do it, then I got to take this 13 Bravo gun bunny, that scored a 32 on his ASVAB.
It wasn't that low. No, just kidding.
See, you know where I'm getting at.
Recruiter got me.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yes.
But people that are in, because you've been there.
Yeah.
But people I served in a I wasn't a 13 Bravo. I was a logistics guy, but I served in a 13. I went to Desert Storm with a gun unit, with a gun battalion.
Hell yeah.
So I get it, right? But you make fun of the 13 Bravos, the 11 Bravos, the grunts, right? The 19 Deltas, Scouts Out, right? All those guys. But if you weren't there handling my finance and all my personnel stuff, I'd have had this Cat 4, 13 Bravo over here. They had to pull him off the line because he couldn't get his shit together. That put him anywhere but on a gun. Oh, we'll put him in pack and handle people's finances. Yeah, that's gonna turn out well.
Why didn't my leave get approved?
Yeah, what leave? Oh, we can
I
take.
think I left it somewhere.
Oh, we can take leave.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. So look, you signed on the dotted line. Nobody held a gun to your head. You volunteered. You went through the training, just like everybody does, right? Everybody goes through the same boot camp. Now, that's what once boot camp's finished, that's where it kind of, you either go OSIT, right, or you go somewhere to another unit, or you go to another installation. Like me, I went to Fort Knox for basic training.
Same here.
And then I went to, but I was a reservist for like this long.
Right.
And then I went active. But so I actually went home for about 2 weeks, and then went to Fort Lee for training.
Hell yeah.
And then when I went active, I went to Fort Sill because I changed MOSs, right? I went to Lance Missiles.
Hell yeah.
I actually joined in
what year were you in?
That was the end of 85.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, never mind.
So I actually joined an OSIT group. They had just finished basic training, and here I am. I hadn't been in boot camp in, 10 months? And I wasn't, trying to stay in shape. I was like 19, 20 years old, right?
Right.
And these guys just finished boot. So they're running 13-minute 2 miles and stuff. And so, but I was young. I mean, they gave me, so these guys were just trying, so I come in and I joined as a new guy, right? And the senior drill sergeant he was probably all this tall, but he looked like a bulldog, right? I mean, his legs.
Was he a ranger?
It was funny when because he ran his legs were so short, but he took the platoon and we started running. He gave me the guide on. He said, "New guy." So
oh God.
Oh, and we were hauling ass. And we get about 3/4 through the run. I don't remember how far we ran, but we get 3/4 through, and I'm just going, and I'm like, Senior Drill Sergeant. He goes, "Don't you fucking quit." I said, "Senior Drill Sergeant, do not fucking quit.
Are we there yet?
I will create a significant emotional event in your life if you quit."
That's awesome.
I made it, but I thought I was gonna die, because these guys are just, they just finished boot camp. 9 weeks of running every day. But yeah, so it's all perspective, man. It's every single job is important.
How long were you at Sill?
Oh, I wasn't there for training, but I was there as my dad. That's actually where my dad retired. I was there. So when my dad was there, I did my freshman and sophomore year. So I went to Central Junior High and then Lawton High my sophomore year. And actually and that's a 5A school. And coming into that season, which was the 81. Yeah, so the fall of 80.
Man.
My sophomore. Yeah. We were ranked number 1 in the state.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and we came in preseason number 1, 5A school. And that's when Oklahoma was like, they were always in the top 3.
Right.
Barry Switzer was the coach, and our quarterback, his name was Rodney Douglas. We called him Hootie.
Mm.
Like Hootie and the Blowfish. His nickname was Hootie. That was way before Hootie,
right.
Darius Rucker.
Right.
But he was a senior, and his name was Rodney Douglas. And he was so fast. And Barry Switzer actually came down to our school, and there's a picture in a yearbook of him at Hootie's wall locker. So he was recruiting him to come play. And that back in those days, you played the option.
Right.
Option football. So, and this dude if he got around the corner, you're not going to catch him. He was just so fast.
He ended up playing college football.
So he was getting recruited by, one of the top country schools in the nation. And every year, Oklahoma and Texas have a senior bowl. So the top seniors from both states, they get and they play each other. And he broke his leg.
No.
And to the point where he never played.
Oh,
he never played football again.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Fort Sill wasn't too bad. I was only there for AIT after my reenlistment, so it was pretty cool. I got to be there as prior service. That was fun.
Yeah, I was there prior service as well.
That was fun. But no, other than that, it just seemed like there was always highway road work. There's It was just like desolate, kind of.
I remember when I got there because my dad was, he was combat. He was a combat engineer, so he was in company. He was in a company.
Right.
And then when you go to training, you're in a company, right? Unless you're at Fort Sill, then you're in a battery.
Right.
So all I knew was company. I had no idea what a battery was. So I think I was an E2 or an E3 when I went down there. So I get on this bus where they're going to take me over to the OC unit that I'm joining, and there's this E5 on there, and he goes, "Hey, you going to a battery?" And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know what the fuck's a battery. And I went, "Yes, Sergeant."
Roger that.
Huh?
I mean, that's the go-to answer.
And then I found out what a battery was. Just a company. This artillery calls it. Yeah. Who is awesome, man, dude. I married a German girl in Germany, and I got married in a German courthouse, and I didn't understand a word they were saying, so I told my ex-wife, she goes, "Well, how are you going to do this? You don't understand what they're saying." And I go, "Just tell me when to say who."
How long were you out in Germany?
Oh, I did 2 tours, 3 years. Well, the first one was 3.5, and then the second one was 3. And then I was over there with my dad in the 70s for 3 years as well.
That's pretty cool. Was he was in while you were in as well?
No.
During that time,
I was over there with him as a dependent.
Oh, gotcha.
I mean, we went over 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I did over there, and then from there we went to Fort Sill.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I always get every time I hear other vets stories about their time in service or something, I'm always like, and then I start talking about stuff that I've done or whatever. All I think about is, man, if I could go back now with
the knowledge
I have now, I would have done things so differently.
That's why they say hindsight is 20/20, man.
That's why I'm always trying to like shove info into my kids' brains, because my oldest is 15, about to turn 16 this year. I want to join the Army. I'm going to be a pilot, and all that. And at least I've gotten to get them on the same page with, don't go in enlisted. Go in as an officer or something if you can. And like that way you can.
My son went in actually when I was running a recruiting station in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and he was a senior, and I never talked to him about going in the military.
No?
Nope, never. I just said, you got to have a plan. I say, because come August after you graduate, I'm not saying you're going to leave the house, but the rules are going to be different.
Yeah,
you're going to be paying rent. Yep. And you're going to get treated like a man who's out of high school. And I said, but you got to just know that.
When did he go in?
And then so he graduated in May. Early April, he comes to me and he goes, his dad, I think I want to join the Army. I go, why? And he just looks at me and I go, you don't have a plan, do you? He remembered our conversation. You better have a plan come August. Right? And he goes, no. And I said, well, what do you want to do? And what happened?
Keep going.
Oh. I said, well, what do you want to do? And he goes, well, I want to go. He was in Taekwondo. So he was like a 4th degree black belt at that time, 3rd or 4th degree black belt, Taekwondo, by the time he was a senior. So he said, I want to go to Korea because I want to do Taekwondo with the Koreans, and I want to work with computers. And I said, okay, well, you go, we'll get you through the process. And when you sit down with the counselors, you say, I want to work with computers, and I want to go to Korea out of training. And if they don't give you that, then you just, you leave, you walk away. I knew because I was I was in the company and I was a station commander, so I knew they'd get him. They'd find a way to get him what he wanted, but I didn't tell him that. I just said, go up and tell me what you want, and if they don't give it to you, walk away.
Hell yeah.
So. They gave him, he was fired direction, man, for the artillery guys, for the 13 Bravos. He was a 13 Fox, I think is what it was. So not quite what he was meant when he was talking about computers, but he still got to play with computers. And he went to Korea, and he was on the Army Taekwondo team there. And they got to actually do Taekwondo with the Koreans. And, he did his time and got out, but he's back, and he went back to Coeur d'Alene. That's where because he did his whole high school career there, freshman through So all his friends were there. He's married now. He has 2. So he teaches Taekwondo at his own dojo, and it's not called a dojo in Taekwondo.
Right.
And if he heard me say that, he would correct me, but that's what it is, whatever the Taekwondo. And then he does it at the YMCA as well. But he is I think he's a sixth degree black belt working on his 7th degree. And for your 6th degree up, you actually have to go to Korea to test for your next level. But there was a guy in Omaha who was a 6th or 7th dan, so they did some kind of waiver, and so he tested there for his 6th dan. But I think for his 7th, I think it only goes up to 9 if I'm not mistaken.
My buddy went to Hawaii for.
But once you're a 6th dan, you're considered a master.
Yeah.
So they call him master.
That's nuts.
Yeah, he's been doing it. So remember, I don't know if you remember, but in 1989 when the Ninja Turtles came out, right?
Which one? The live action one?
No, the actual.
No, I know.
The original. And of course, they're
the cartoon.
So all the kids are into that, right? And we had just moved. We had just came from Germany. He was 5, and we were at Fort Hood, and he's like, I want to do this. So they, on base they had a, class.
That's cool.
Yeah, Tiger Lim was the guy's name, Korean guy, and I was like, okay, we'll put him in there. And I think we paid $30 a month or whatever. And I say he'll last a couple of weeks, and he'll go on to something else. That was 1989.
Hell yeah!
And now he's working for his 7th degree black belt.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. And he's done all his stuff with the VA. Gone.
Oh yeah,
through.
he actually hurt his back. They were.
I mean, not good. He hurt his.
They were doing PT, and they were doing the carry. When you put a guy
fireman,
and
carry.
then you race down and back, and he stepped in a hole.
Oh no!
And, I mean, tweaked his back really, really bad. And so he got a medical retirement.
Good for him.
So and he deals with the VA, does VA up in there in Spokane, I think. So yeah, he does well. I mean, he's a little limited on what he can do, with his martial arts.
Right.
But he can still do his forms and teach. But he can't. Cool. He can't compete or anything like that because his back won't let him.
Nice. Is there we're about to hit 2 hours.
Yeah.
Any shout outs, anything like that before we call it a day?
Just shout out to everybody who's wore the uniform, man. And I would say that, get with anybody who's in the know. And if you don't, start with your VSO, man. Just go to your VSO and, or just, a good way to learn too is just to go to the VA website and start looking up anything you might be interested in, educational benefits, burials. I learned a lot when my dad passed. Me and my brother's Air Force guy, about burials and all the stuff that comes with that with a veteran.
And it's good to know before it happens, that you're a little bit more prepared.
But I would say probably most of the what do you call those places that help you bury? Funeral homes. My CRS is kicking in. Yeah. I can't remember shit. The funeral homes, most of them know how to do that. And they can help you through it too. But educational benefits, you start talking about Chapter 31, Chapter 35, Chapter 30.
Payments for spouses things. As well when their veteran passes.
You can go, a lot of it is VA speak.
Yep.
But it can get you a general knowledge of what the policy is and what you can and can't do, and then you can just take that information and go to somebody who is in the know and say, hey, I was reading about this on the VA website, and not quite clear on this and
There's
this.
There's books on it. That one book I got from the
books.
VSO that went to the Crave restaurant.
And I think there's a new one that comes out every year because stuff changes.
Oh, yeah.
There's definitely going to change this year with everything, all the changes that they're making, in the government, specifically for us, the VA.
Yeah, whether it's the VSO or at the Northern Colorado Veterans Network get together, no matter what it is, there's going to be somebody at these places that can point you in the right direction. Yep. Our main thing is letting people know there's no gatekeeping. There's no, I'll only let you know this much or whatever. Like free we are here to help.
Yeah.
for free.
So with that,
Let
I'll
us
give
help.
yeah. So with that, I'll give one last shout out to the Northern Colorado Veterans Network. So it's growing quickly. More and more people are learning about it, and everybody who's come to it says, "Man, what a great idea! Glad I showed up." And it's and most of them are advocates in some kind of way, whether it's 501c3 or VA or state or county. Um, so it's hard to get advocates there, but it's easy if that makes sense. When you're talking about the ones who really need to be there, who's the veterans. You need both. I mean, if the veterans show up and there's no advocates, they're going to lose interest. They're like, why am I here? And vice versa. All the advocates show up and there's no veterans to help.
Yeah.
Right. So I would just say, spread the word, show up. There's 3 different places you can go, and if you don't want to travel, you just might have to wait a month or two for. But if you do, I mean, we do have people that have been to every event so far.
Oh yeah,
Veterans and advocates that have been to every event, and then there's some that just they'll show up when you hit their county, which is cool too. But we in 3 events. The last one was a little, in terms of the one we did in Longmont, the attendance was a little shy. We still had, I think, 20 something people, but the weather, I mean, those were the sub-zero temperatures we were having there for a couple weeks.
people were scared of the ice.
They were scared of it, but I looked at the numbers, so we're actually averaging 28 people per event, and for only having 3 events.
Yeah, that's
so far.
That's pretty good.
Those are good numbers. I mean,
yeah,
increases. So, it's going to continue to grow. The guys in Iowa that we're basically copycatting off of, that's been around for 6-7 years now. They're getting 100+ people at every event, and theirs are a lot more sophisticated because they've just over time they've figured out what works for them. And this one was in the Quad Cities area, so there's other places, Moline and Des Moines and Cedar Valley. They have their own networking groups within Iowa as well that I think they all piggybacked off of Quad Cities. But so I have the feeling the same thing is going to happen here. And the cool thing is, this is something that if one day I go away or you go away or we both go away, somebody else can take this over and continue it.
Right.
It's not a hard thing to do. It's just a little coordination and then getting the word out. And then having something, even if you don't have anybody there to speak, which we just have people come up that are advocates and say, this is who I am, this is what we do, and this is how we can help, and this is how you get in contact with us. And then after that is when the real stuff starts, because like, hey, I need to talk to you.
Right.
There's people standing around waiting to talk to people. But we really need to get the veterans there.
No, I think as spring comes a little bit closer and some of the other foundations I work with, like CRF, Combat Recovery Foundation, or any of these other groups, they have a litany of veterans that are looking for help, looking for work, like anything you can think of that can get pointed in the right direction. So I think this year's going to be great because it's going to be our first real spring, summer time kind of year. And
I mean, we started in December, not the best time, but but I would also say, bring your spouse, your significant other. That's important.
If anything, it's an excuse to get your veteran out of the house and
we
around brothers and sisters.
Yeah, and we do it at a social place like a brewery or where you can have a beer or a soda or a water and a hot dog, or have dinner. And so far 2 out of 3 places have been veteran owned. So you're helping out veterans as that goes too. And I mean, if anything, just be around like-minded people. I mean, you might meet somebody. You never know. I mean, Northern Colorado is big. You might meet somebody that you served with 10 years ago. And like, for example, when I told you I was with my dad in the late 70s over in Germany. And one of my best friends, Steve Gumas, Steve-O, looked for him forever. Hadn't seen him in 40 years. Come to find out not too long ago through Facebook, about a year ago, he's in Colorado Springs. He was in Colorado Springs in the 90s when I was there, when I was at Fort Carson for 3 years.
That's cool.
And didn't even know it.
That's crazy.
And I was trying to find him on Facebook, but I couldn't find him. He had put his reason I found out is he put his middle initial, which I didn't know his middle name.
Right.
That's why I couldn't find him. Well, he found me and reached out. I'm like, dude, where you at? I'm in Colorado Springs, man. I've been here since the 80s.
That's badass.
So you might come over to a networking event and you'll meet Joe and Joe.
Seriously,
Dude, I ain't seen you in 10 years, man. Man, I just live in Loveland. Well, so do I. Who knows?
No,
You know,
I love it. I actually met a veteran buddy from my time at Bliss at a weed expo. I was doing security for like EP work, and I was just like, "What are you doing here?" He's like, "Oh, I'm starting a dispensary down in Texas or something for medical marijuana." So like it really is crazy because it's such a small world that it's. There's no reason not to get out of the house. No reason not to go meet new people.
Yeah. Hang out with a group of Army guys or gals or Marines or sailors or airmen or guardians.
Space for guardians.
Yeah.
Well, man,
or coasties.
I really appreciate you coming out and talking with me, and I hope some of the stuff that we spoke about can help somebody, no matter what it is, and. We just keep doing what we're doing. You keep doing what you're doing because you're definitely putting a dent in this stuff. So
yeah, we just got to keep doing what we're doing, and we'll reach as many people as we can.
Perfect.
All right.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Absolutely. Thank
All
you.
right.